Yeah, dear friend, there was request from the students to teach the Z transform. So I decided to give 2-3 lectures on Z transform in this week. Before starting the Z transform, in Z transform we need some results from the mathematics, and after knowing these results, we'll start actual Z transform. Let us see what are the results which are required while solving the problems on the Z transform. The first result which is required many times while solving the problem on Z transform is alpha raised to k is equal to 0 to n. So what is the value of this summation? Like this summation usually come when we solve the problems on Z transform. So to find this problem, what I will be doing is, again I am multiplying this equation by alpha. So alpha into s of n, both this side multiply by alpha. What you get? Alpha here multiplied by alpha. So alpha raised to k becomes alpha raised to k plus 1 and k is equal to 0. So only this equation I multiplied by alpha. Now subtract equation number subtract equation 2 from equation 1. So you will be getting Sn minus alpha into Sn is equal to summation alpha raised to k is equal to 0 to n minus 1 minus alpha raised to k plus 1, right, and k is equal to 0 to n. So the first I took this equation, I wanted to know what is the value, actual value of this equation. If you solve this, it will be like this: alpha raised to k, alpha raised to 0, it is 1, alpha raised to 1, alpha raised to 2, and so on, alpha raised to n. This is the expansion of the summation, and whatever result get, that is the result. But if suppose alpha is very large, in that case it is very difficult to do these calculations. Let us say alpha is infinity, what is the value? So in that case, many times we come across that alpha n is the power of the alpha is minus infinity and plus infinity. In that case we need to have some formula, many times it is required. So to derive that formula, what I did, I took this expression and multiplied this expression by alpha. So I am getting this. So here if I expand this also, you will be getting alpha square and alpha raised to n plus 1, alpha raised to n plus 1. So now I am subtracting this equation, second equation, from equation number 1. Let us say equation number 1 and equation number 2. So subtract equation 2 from equation 1. So after subtraction, what I am getting is, just see, this alpha getting cancelled, alpha square getting cancelled. Here there is a term alpha raised to n plus 1, that term is not here. Here alpha raised to n is there. So here it is starting from 1 and it is starting from alpha. So what we can say is 1 is available here, it is not there. So 1 from the first term, and here alpha raised to n is there, here also alpha raised to n. They are matching alpha to alpha raised to n. Only extra term is alpha raised to n plus 1, and which is Sn. Sn means our summation alpha raised to k equal to 0 to n. So if I take Sn out, it will be let us write one more step here, 1 minus alpha raised to n plus 1. Okay, so and Sn equal to 1 minus alpha raised to n plus 1 divided by 1 minus alpha. So what is this? This is summation alpha raised to k is varying from 0 to n. It is the value of this, right? It is the value of this. Sn is nothing but alpha raised to k is varying from 0 to n, which is 1 minus alpha raised to n plus 1 minus alpha. If we assume here alpha is less than 1, let us say alpha is 1 by 2, and if I take 1 by 2 raised to suppose infinity, 1 by 2 raised to infinity is what? It is 0. So as long as your alpha is less than infinity, and n tends to infinity, as long as your alpha is less than 1 and n tends to infinity, so as long as your alpha, or if alpha is a complex, mod alpha is less than 1 and n is tending to infinity, alpha raised to n plus 1 tends to 0. So since if alpha is real, there is no issue, you can compare with 1. If or it is negative also, that mod is coming because of negative, positive, as well as alpha when alpha is complex. So value of alpha, if it is less than 1, in that case alpha raised to n, where n is infinity, result will be 0. So what I am saying is 1 minus alpha raised to n plus 1 divided by 1 minus alpha. It is for alpha raised to k. K is varying from 0 to n. So it is the formula for this. And I am saying that if alpha is real number, then mod alpha should be less than 1. If alpha is complex, then also we have to take mod. So anyway, magnitude of the alpha should be less than 1. If that is the case, then when I say k equal to 0 to infinity, in that case 1 minus alpha raised to infinity divided by 1 minus alpha. So alpha raised to infinity is 0. Alpha raised to infinity is 0 because 1 by 2 or 1 by 3, 1 by 4 raised to infinity, the result will be infinity. Take n equal to infinity, so we know that what will be the formula, k equal to 0 to infinity alpha raised to k, and as n tending to infinity, here 1 alpha raised to n plus 1 will be 0, 1 over 1 minus 0 divided by 1 minus alpha, denominator will be as it is. So your formula becomes alpha raised to k equal to 0 to infinity. The result is 1 divided by 1 minus alpha. 1 divided by 1 minus alpha. And here in this case, if suppose your both the limits are finite, first limit, initial limit, as well as final limit of summation, they are finite, in that case what role this formula is having? Here this is only true if mod of alpha is less than 1. It is only true mod of alpha is less than 1. So what I said, alpha may be negative, alpha may be positive, I am taking mod. Even if alpha is complex, the magnitude of alpha should be less than 1, then only alpha raised to n plus 1 will be 0. So this is the formula for if alpha is running, k is running from 0 to infinity, and it means that 1 plus alpha square, alpha cube, and alpha raised to infinity. If you add this infinite series, result will be 1 divided by 1 minus alpha. If I take finite limit, let us say k is varying from n1 to n2, what happened to this formula? So if n1 and n2 both are finite, no, they are not infinite, n1 and n2 they are finite values or finite constant, in that case your formula becomes alpha raised to n1 minus alpha raised to n2 plus 1 divided by 1 minus alpha. So this is another formula. So n1 n2 alpha raised to k, alpha raised to n1 minus alpha raised to n2 plus 1 minus alpha. So this is another formula which is also required many times. Here n2 is infinity, this will go out if alpha is less than 1. Here in this case this formula can be used, whatever may be the value of alpha, as long as n1 and n2 they are finite values, whatever may be value of alpha, the formula will be like this, right? So in this case this is for general value of alpha. Alpha may be negative, alpha may be constant, alpha may be complex. So as long as n1 and n2 they are less than infinity, the formula is going to give the result. But in this case this formula is only used when alpha is less than 1, and this is for any value of alpha as long as n1 and n2 they are less than infinity. These are the two results from the mathematics they are required for solving the problems on the Z transform. That is why I am just discussing these two results. Many times again one more result is required. Let us take that also. Okay, what we'll be doing is we'll be taking the derivative of, so let us take k is equal to 0 to infinity, so this will go out and here it will be 1 over 1 minus alpha. So if I differentiate both the side, right, with respect to alpha, what will be the result? So here result will be just see, differentiate alpha raised to k times alpha raised to k minus 1, and k is equal to 0 to infinity. So what is the derivative of this? What is this? It is 1 minus alpha raised to minus 1. What is the derivative of this? Minus 1 minus alpha raised to minus 2, and derivative of minus alpha is minus 1. So it is plus, the result is 1 over 1 minus alpha whole square. And I want here this result k times alpha raised to k is constant, both are varying. So here we can start from 1 to infinity, because k equal to 0, this term is going to be 0. So I want that k, it can also be written as like this, right? The formula 1 minus alpha raised to minus 1. So derivative of this is minus 1, okay, I made plus afterward, minus 1, okay, 1 minus alpha raised to minus 2 into derivative of minus alpha, that is minus 1 minus plus 1. So this result is also required while solving the problems on the Z transform. Here in this case also, whatever we are saying, alpha is less than 1. So if I take mod alpha, it is always better. Alpha may be negative or positive, it should be less than 1. So now after having these formulas in our hand, we will see one more thing which is again required while studying the Z transform is, if we are having in Z transform, the kernel of the Z transform is Z raised to minus n. So where Z is a complex number, Z is a complex variable, it is a complex variable. So I told you that whenever the complex variable is there, we talk about its magnitude and phase, or we talk about its real part and imaginary part. So let us say this Z is this one complex variable, so Z can be written as a plus, we can say jb. So it is real part and b is imaginary part. What is the magnitude of Z? Magnitude of Z is square root of a square plus b square. So what is the phase of Z? Phase of Z is equal to tan inverse of b by a, tan inverse of imaginary part divided by real part. So if Z is a complex number, we can talk about its magnitude and its phase. So is there, suppose Z is equal to e to the power j omega. So what is the magnitude of this Z? Suppose Z is equal to e to the power j omega. If Z is equal to e to the power j omega, so in that case magnitude of Z is, it is mod of cos theta plus j times sin theta, right? So it is nothing but square root of cos square theta plus sin square theta. So it is 1. So henceforth whenever e to the power j omega is coming, so magnitude of e to the power j omega is always 1. Magnitude of j omega, magnitude of e to the power j omega is always 1, or Z equal to e to the power j omega, Z equal to e to the power j omega. In that case your magnitude is 1. What is the phase in that case? So let us see. Z equal to e to the power j omega, in that case I can say that Z equal to e to the power j omega, so magnitude of Z is equal to 1 and phase of Z is equal to omega. It is the phase. E to the power j theta, theta is called phase. And when we plot e to the power j omega, so what we get? So magnitude is known, phase is known. So we can say that e to the power j omega, j can be pi by 4. So if j is pi by 4, what we get? E to the power j pi by 4, magnitude is 1 and omega, that angle is pi by 4. If I say omega equal to pi by 2, it becomes e to the power j pi by 2. So its answer is j. Magnitude of j is again 1. So if I take z equal to this value, what will happen? Magnitude of that is always 1. You must have understood magnitude is always 1. Only thing is that your phase, this omega, whatever is phase, that phase is omega and magnitude is 1. Okay, if z equal to e to the power j omega, magnitude of z is always 1 and phase is omega. So that is represented by this one. Omega equal to 0, it is this value. Omega equal to pi by 2, it is this value. Omega equal to pi, it is this value. Omega equal to 3j pi by 2, it is. So here in this case what happens, if I am talking about magnitude is 1. Here in this case, if I take z equal to e to the power j omega, and if you are plotting omega equal to 0, omega equal to pi by 2, omega equal to pi, omega equal to 3 pi by 2, omega equal to 2 pi. So if you plot e to the power j omega for different values of omega, definitely it will be a circle. Definitely it will be a circle. That is what I am talking about, its magnitude. If I plot its magnitude, so for different values of omega, if we take values of omega from 0 to 2 pi, so definitely magnitude is 1. And here this omega equal, the whatever is omega, that is called as theta, in which when we say that e to the power j theta, theta is phase. So likewise here it has meaning of theta, so it is a phase. Magnitude of z is 1 and phase is theta. So this theta is also called as phasor. This is also called as phasor. So it is making angle omega with x-axis. It is a real part of the z plane, real axis of the z plane, and it is imaginary axis of z plane. So z plane also has two axes, real axis and imaginary axis. So imaginary axis, so here if you want to see what is this value actually, so this is actually angle omega is making angle pi by 2. So here it is e to the power j pi by 2, it is j, e to the power j pi by 2 is j. If I take omega equal to pi, it will be minus 1, and if I take omega equal to 3 pi by 2, it will be minus j, and if I take omega equal to 2 pi, it will be again 1. In that case, in case of z plane, if you are talking about values of z, so in that case, okay, if I put j equal to omega equal to pi by 2, you get plus j, omega equal to 3 pi by 2, you get minus j, omega equal to pi, you get minus 1, omega equal to 0, you get plus 1, and for all other values of omega, you get the values. So the magnitude is 1 and angle is omega. So here I have chosen z, which is very simple, but in general z is r e to the power j omega. So in that case, how this z plane will change and how this angle will change, let us see that.
1.
In general, your z can be r e to the power j theta, where r can be less than 1 or r can be greater than 1. In that case, when we plot this in the z plane, so again mod of z is nothing but, if I take mod of this side, so mod of r and mod of e to the power j theta, so mod of z equal to mod of r. It is a circle. This is a circle of radius r, and this omega is an angle which is making with x-axis. So if z equal to r e to the power j theta, so if you are plotting its magnitude, if you are plotting its angle, it is like this. It is like this. So magnitude, it is a circle of radius r and angle is theta. This is what we should understand when the variable is complex. So magnitude and angle, or magnitude and phase. The phase is, if I say here r equal to 2 and e to the power, let us say j pi by 4. So in this case, the radius of the circle r is 2 and this omega equal to pi by 4. It is the meaning. So magnitude is 2 and angle is pi by 4. So in this way we can describe z plane. You have studied S plane while studying the Laplace transform. In Laplace transform also, in Laplace domain also, we have the S plane, and in that S plane we are having real axis and imaginary axis. Here also in Z domain we are having real axis and imaginary axis. So here we are having variable z, and there we are having variable s, and Z has magnitude as well as phase. In Laplace domain also, S is a complex variable. It is also having a real part as well as imaginary part, and that has magnitude as well as phase. So there are differences between S domain and Z domain. Whenever we go for Z transform, we'll study Z transform in detail. That time I will explain Laplace plane and Z plane, how the things are mapped between S plane and Z plane. Now let us start in the next video. Let us start the Z transform. This was the requirement to understand the Z transform. So that is why I have taken some time to explain these preliminary mathematical things which are required whenever we find the Z transform of various signals.